Firewatch looked like a game I might enjoy. It's carried by a great story at the expense of the actual gameplay, but that's not quite true either. Going in, I knew that the game is short, but had no idea that it's basically a walking simulator. It looks pretty enough, though the graphics are a bit dated. It also supports Ultrawide natively. One of its bigger issues is that it suffers from the low budget syndrome. For example, our character never really meets any other people at any point of the game. Whenever people are supposed to be around, they're always just outside of frame, or we're being told that they just left. The map itself is also very restricted. Instead of having a more open forest with added exploration, we find ourselves constantly hitting walls of trees, bushes or rocks. There are minimal things you can find by exploring the very limited environments, but they barely add anything to the experience. As an example, I once found a turtle which would then appear in my character's tower as a pet, and that's pretty much it. The story of the game starts in an interesting way. We are giving some exposition in the form of a choose your own adventure text segment, where we pick what choices our character makes. This is done well enough and doesn't bother since the text is short and the choices feel meaningful. The problem is that they're not. None of it is. The story is linear and cannot be influenced by the player in any way. This means absolutely no replayability for a game which is already barely 4 hours long. I wouldn't have had a problem with its length, although it's very short, had it at least provided good gameplay or an awesome story. Let's start with the gameplay first. I've mentioned how this game is pretty much a walking simulator. This means that all of your objectives are go from A to B and eventually interact with something. You cannot lose, you cannot die, or in any way affect the story. In essence, watching someone else play the game would be just as entertaining as playing it yourself. The one thing which made my experience quite enjoyable was the voice acting. The actors deliver a fantastic performance which makes you want to play on in order to see what will happen. The story starts interesting at first and then turns into a mystery which had me guessing. I expected a plot twist and had a theory in mind. That was a good way to hook the player and make him want to play more. However, the closer I got to the 4-hour mark, the more obvious it became that I had given the story way more credit than it deserved. Then came the ending, which felt abrupt and unsatisfying. Everyone I've spoken to agrees that the ending felt sudden, as though the devs ran out of money and just ended the game prematurely. At the end of the day, Firewatch was enjoyable but disappointing. I would have been fine with the short playtime if the story had been solid. I would have also been fine with the non-existent gameplay under these conditions. Story is king, and provided it's good enough, any problem can be healed by it. But this one was like a promise for pizza which ended up being a pancake. It's not a bad thing, just not what I really expected and therefore left me disappointed and perhaps hungry for a lot more. Firewatch currently costs €20 on both Steam and GOG. That feels like an inappropriately high price tag for what it offers if you ask me. If it were to drop down to $10, I'd say grab it. It's not great, but it isn't terrible either, and hey, some people seem to love it. Just keep your expectations realistic and you will still have an enjoyable evening with this one. Or, watch a playthrough on YouTube for free. Just saying. Anyway, thank you for watching Game Filter. This is Nino signing out.